Good afternoon, my name is Benjamin and welcome to another video for the Roanoke Valley Chess Club. Today we're going to be doing our in-depth game analysis, and if you're wondering why I didn't upload last week, I wanted a short little break. But we're back in it and we're going to keep going, and tomorrow, after the tournament is over, our June quick tournament, I am going to be uploading that video, and yeah. We'll see how that tournament goes. We should have some good turnout for that. Anyway, this is a game that was played in 2018, so it was a little bit ago, and I had the black pieces against a somewhat regular member of our club, Prabhu. He's a good person. He's a good player. He's a fairly strong player. In the 16 to 1700 range, depending on the day. We'll see how things can go how a game can develop. And the point of this is to kind of talk about some in-depth looks and kind of talk about how you should be analyzing positions and how to think about these things. So I like to play the Grunfeld, so I do. And we get not necessarily a non-standard, but we get somebody trying to, one of the ways to avoid the main theoretical lines of the Grunfeld. So I'm going to keep playing the logical plan for this, and obviously one of the big goals of the Grunfeld is to weaken the d4 square, so it makes sense to pin this knight, and when he threatens it, just take it. Because you can't retreat without conceding that you made a mistake, and you can't go here because you lose a piece. So take it. Queen takes c6, just anchors the pawn chain and says, okay, well, fine. And really what I'm doing is I'm not taking on c4 because I want white to move the bishop before I take on c4. So he does, and so I do. And maybe this was a slight bit weakening. I should have played something like knight to d7, which is certainly a better move. Knight to d7 is probably, I would argue, the best move because you don't really accomplish anything with b5 hitting it, and maybe I'm preparing to play e5 in the wrong way, which is one of the reasons why I played rook to e8, is I want to play e5. Castles, knight d7. So I do play it, I just play it in a different order than I probably should have. D5 by Prabhu, and I could take this and mass liquidations would happen on d5, but I didn't want that. I liked controlling the d5 and b5 squares, so I played e5, and I was okay with having a slightly loose pawn structure, even though I probably shouldn't have been. Knight gets pinned, and I'm not really concerned about it because I have it sufficiently defended. Pick up a little bit of fork, trade off a bishop that is causing me a little bit of consternation. And I get my queen active to the b6 square, which probably wasn't the best square to put her on. D6 maybe, but I didn't want to be hit with a tempo gain from white with rook a to e1. So I wanted to hit a pawn, maybe look at plans like, and I wanted to bring my rook to the d file as quickly as possible. My a rook. Knight a4 hits that, so I just draw my queen back, and unfortunately I lost a lot of tempo in that exchange, and I actually wind up losing a pawn here. Sort of, because this move says, okay, I'm going to lose the b7 pawn, but I don't really care because you're going to lose your b2 pawn, or maybe even your bishop, and I'll have bishop for knight in an open game, and that should be an advantage to me. Plus, my queen actually covers b7, so I kind of lied a little bit. So I take it. And then I hit the knight, and okay, I lose it, but I cover it, and now the knight's under threat. Queen c7, I kick it, and my point here was to prove that that knight was in a terrible position from this point on. And this actually just wins a piece because I just hit everything as much as I can. So my opponent he sacks the exchange in order to try, but now the knight's actually trapped. And let's see how that sequence actually happened. As soon as he played knight takes b7, I realized he couldn't because his knight was in such a terrible position. He'd have to play knight to a4 in order to save it. And he can't do that because his queen is under threat. So he has to take the pawn. So when I go here, he has to stay on the diagonal. Maybe queen e4 was slightly better. But if I remember this game correctly, I think the ultimate goal, or I think the plan was to play e5 and then rook c7, forcing the knight to this really awful square where it's also trapped. And it's even less active than it is on b7. So it's... all of black's pieces are... all of my pieces are actually fairly good. This bishop could be slightly better placed. But white's pieces are horrible. This rook is not doing anything except defending a square that I'm not attacking. This bishop is locked completely out of the game. Because after, say, bishop h4, I can simply just play g5, and I'm okay. I don't like the looseness, but I'll live. And this rook is being interfered with. So, yeah. Queen f3 was chosen, however, and I said, oh, I can hit that with tempo. And I thought, okay, maybe queen e4 here. Which obviously didn't happen, but it runs into the same problem that I've got rook here, which is going to allow me to double up on the f-file and or swing this rook over. And it's just a great square for the rook. But I like just the simple and very direct threat. And, I mean, this actually picks up... well, it should pick up the knight, but it doesn't because this square is available, obviously. So I would probably say, yeah, queen f6 makes some level of sense, I guess. But maybe I would have played rook f5. I don't actually know. And I'm not sure what the idea, what the best move is for black, or for white, sorry. But when he played bishop f4, I'm like, oh, well, that just wins me a piece because I exploit the pin, and if he goes here and check, well, he can't check me right now, so that's why he sacked the exchange. And I took because why not? And now the knight is actually trapped because it can't go to any square without being taken. But it allows queen d5, and maybe we're going to be able to do something about this knight. But the problem is I just put my rook here and say, okay, your knight's under threat. You've got two pieces hanging, and I may be down. I may be up in exchange, but you're about to be down a full rook. And that's how that game ended. My opponent resigned here because all the options are bad. I think the best move is just to take this, and I'm going to take here. And it would be foolish to trade queens, but at some point you're going to have to admit defeat, and I'm going to consolidate my position. I mean, the bishop comes back, and okay, what are we doing here? And I would say this is just better for black in every conceivable way. And because this is just a bad. I would say this is just a bad move, because we'd have to do that, and I'd honestly start considering moves like this. But I can snag. I can snag a pawn, and black doesn't have any real compensation for being down a rook. So that's how that game ended, and that's basically how you look at situations where your opponent insists on taking a pawn, or this is how you, when you notice a piece can be trapped, you insist that it remain trapped. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. See you next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.